Hi everyone, welcome back to my latest KDP video. I started writing down a load of things randomly that I thought I wish I'd known this when I started KDP, or I wish I'd done these things differently. They're very specific to my journey. Are we still saying journey? My journey on KDP. So they may or may not be relevant to you, but I thought they might be an interesting thing that you can listen to perhaps while you're doing a bit of KDP work. So these are the things that I wish I had known more about, or that I would do differently if I was starting KDP again right now. The first thing is I wish I had paid more attention to copyright laws. I got caught out right at the beginning of my KDP adventure. I uploaded something that I thought was out of copyright because it's out of copyright in the US, but it was still under copyright in the UK. So Amazon rejected it. They put me on the naughty step. They told me off about it. And yeah, there was a little bit of a procedure to go through to get my account reinstated again. And it was a really silly mistake and something that could have been easily avoided if I'd double checked the different copyright laws that there are in different countries, particularly the ones that are connected to the thing that I had included on the front cover of my notebook. I won't go into all the details of copyright law on here because you really do need to go and figure those out or find out about those yourselves. But an example I would give is that something can be out of copyright in the US because I think it's anything before, is it 1927? Again, don't quote me on that. Look that up and double check. So say something that was made in 1920 in the US, a book that was written in 1920 say, will be out of copyright in the US, but actually it might still be under copyright in the UK, particularly if it's a UK author, because in the UK it's 70 years after the author has died. There's all sorts of little nuances and parts of these different copyright laws, and I wish I had given myself even just a basic grounding in it, and I wouldn't have made the error that I made. The other thing to watch out for as well is that even though something can come out of copyright, I'm thinking about Mickey Mouse, I think finally comes out of copyright in 2023, I think it's next year. However, you know, the Walt Disney Corporation have trademarked everything, and I'm thinking of an example of this in the UK as well. So Agatha Christie famously wrote Poirot books, Miss Marple books, all sorts of golden age of crime books, and very gradually her books are coming out of copyright in the US, but you still can't use them or quote from them or anything like that because they're still under copyright in the UK, and also everything's been trademarked as well. So you've just got to be so careful, and I wish I'd taken that a bit more seriously when I got started. Number two for me is that I wish I had been more consistent with this, and when I look back it's really silly that I wasn't, because I started making some money straight away, and every month since then I've made some money. So I could see that it worked, I could see that it was real, and I was clearly capable of making some things that were at least selling a few times. And yet I still put off doing it. I still wasn't consistent at all. I took, at one point earlier this year, I think I took months away from it where I didn't really do anything at all. I had my reasons at the time, but when I look back at them, I don't think they were good enough, quite frankly. I don't think that my attitude towards it was great, and I didn't take it as seriously as I now wish I had done. You can't go back and you can't change things, and I'm definitely taking it more seriously at the moment and moving forward. But if I could go back and just say to myself, look, it's okay to maybe take a week off, maybe even a couple of weeks if you really need to, if it's making you feel down, if you're just incredibly busy and you can't fit it in, that's okay. But do you really need to sit back for months at a time and not do anything when this income stream is making you something every month? I really wish I'd taken it more seriously, because the thing is, everything that I have done over the course of this year, I could easily have condensed that into maybe just 6 weeks if I'd really worked at it, probably 2 to 3 months if I was being quite relaxed about it. But I definitely would have been further forward now had I have taken it more seriously back then. That being said, if KDP for you is something that is much more like a hobby, definitely just a little something that you're doing on the side of maybe a full-time job or what have you, then, you know, spending just a little bit of time on it is completely appropriate. I just look back at my particular circumstances and think, yeah, it was not appropriate for me. I should have been doing more. The other thing that I've realised, and that I wish I had done earlier on, and I'm certainly doing now, is to try and get your motivation from KDP from something other than your sales, particularly at the beginning when you might not be making very many sales. At the moment, I would say that some of my motivation is coming from sales because they're coming in, and whenever I get them, I get a little bit of a buzz and that gives me a bit of a boost and it makes me want to go back and create more books. But I know that I still have days, I mean, sometimes over the summer I was getting almost like a whole week where I wasn't getting any sales, and I really had to learn not to rely on those sales to keep me motivated, because otherwise I just wouldn't be creating books, and then the business doesn't grow and doesn't become what I want it to become. So some ways that work for me in terms of staying motivated for KDP that aren't connected to the sales are things that might sound a bit silly to you, but it will be things like making sure I have a really nice tidy desk, lighting a scented candle, having a nice notebook out, settling down, a British cup of tea, biscuit, just having a really nice environment that feels like it's a treat to kind of come and sit down and work on this particular business. It's also, because it's something that I have to concentrate on, it's also very much a do not disturb. So I get to shut myself away, get on with the work, and nobody is allowed to come and bother me. And that in itself definitely feels like a treat. Also definitely found that creating books that I really love, that are perhaps on a topic that I'm really interested in, maybe something connected to my own hobbies and interests, I definitely find it easier to be motivated towards those particular books. So making sure I've always got something or a book that I'm working on that I find fun or interesting is really important. I've mentioned in a previous video, I think, about how sometimes when I'm working on a book that's a bit more complicated, maybe a book that I'm not enjoying producing quite so much, I will definitely sort of in between the making of that be working on something that I really enjoy as well. That could be a scrapbook paper pad, it could be just a notebook that's got a really lovely cover that I really love on it, and making sure that I've always got something on the go in terms of KDP that I'm really enjoying making helps me stay motivated with all of it. And then the other thing that sometimes happens is I get a bit of a feel for how the book might make the reader feel when they get it. I think this is very kind of typical with a kid's book. You might kind of imagine your little readers or colourers picking up the book and having fun with it. But there was an idea that I had for something for a Christmas book that made me kind of laugh when I thought about it, and I could really imagine the person who was reading / using this book, how they might feel, almost like where they might be when they use the book, and just things like that. Imagining your reader can be another thing that helps you to stay motivated that isn't connected to your sales. The other thing that I do now that I didn't really do back then is I'm ultra careful when I'm uploading the books. I used to be, I think, a bit slapdash actually with the way that I did it. I didn't really take care over my titles, which is a real problem on KDP because you can't change them. I've got some books out there in the world that make the occasional sale, and I keep looking at them and thinking, oh, I don't know whether to maybe unpublish that and republish it with a better title, because the title I've given it is crap. It's really not very good. And then also I've had a handful of things, probably maybe 3 or 4 things rejected because the title, what was it, something about it, you'll know what I mean, like it's misleading or it could mislead the customer in some way. And again, it's because I haven't been careful with the way I've written my title. I also try and take care over spelling and grammar. Nothing looks more unprofessional than errors of that sort in your book. Well, not just in the book, but in the title and in the description. And then the thing that I'm much better at doing now that I wish I'd got my head around earlier is trying to make everything sound as natural as possible. So make sure that the title reads naturally, and the subtitle, and, you know, those first few sentences in the description as well. And to really make sure that I'm not just stuffing the keywords in, like a list at the end or even a list in the middle of a title, I still catch myself almost like instinctively doing that, and then I kind of have to go back and I draft things and I redraft and I make sure that everything kind of flows when you read it. And I've definitely had fewer sort of title rejections since doing things that way. I've also found that the more organised I stay with everything, the better my workflow is. This isn't for everyone, and actually there is a part of me that is still quite a messy worker, but I do try to keep things reasonably organised in Canva folders. If you have Canva Pro, there is a link to it in the description. You can organise things in folders. I'm not sure if you can do it on the free version. It's been such a long time since I've had the free version. I'm not even sure what is available on there and what isn't, but definitely in the Pro version, you can organise things into folders. So I make use of that. I've got Google Sheets I've started using because I've watched a couple of videos where people were just, you know, kind of making lists of their research of the books that they wanted to make in the different categories. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do that. So I now have a pretty decent like Christmas KDP plan on a spreadsheet. And I've also got Google Docs, which have got my drafts for the descriptions of different types of books that I sell. So I can tweak them to fit whatever book I've just made. There are things that I can cut and paste. I keep lists of my keywords for the 7 boxes, a list of my different titles, anything that I think has worked or that I think is really good. It's on those Google Docs and it has definitely sped up my workflow, and it feels like my brain feels less cluttered now that I'm sort of keeping things and have them relatively well organised. Not completely, not insanely organised, not absolutely perfectly organised, but reasonably organised. The other thing that I wish I had done a lot earlier was to challenge myself to make more complex books. I definitely got stuck in the notebook rut. Well, for me, it was a rut quite early on. And I think my problem was because a lot of those earlier notebooks that I made actually sold, and it made me think that I needed to spend all of my time doing those, and oh, the colouring books can wait, the activity books can wait, the everything else books can wait. And I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I had done then what I've done over the last couple of months, I would say, which is to really start experimenting with different types of books. So I now have scrapbook paper pads, I have colouring books, I've got slightly different types of planners in place. I have still got my notebooks though, because they're an important part of my business, which I think has probably come across in previous videos. But yeah, I wish I'd had a bit more faith in myself to learn how to do other types of books much earlier on, rather than keep putting it off and keep putting it off. Now, this next point is something that I have started to do now, but again, I wish I'd started doing it much earlier on. And that is, once you've learned how to do something better, for example, you've learned how to write a better description, or you've learned how to fill out the keyword boxes perhaps slightly differently or in a better way, or a way that makes more sense to you, is yes, absolutely apply those things to all the future books that you're making. But for a lot of those things, you can go back and you can make those changes and those adjustments to your old books. For me, I think my descriptions were always the weakest part of my books, whereas now I think I write them a lot better, and really I should have started going back and kind of making those improvements a lot earlier on. Whereas now I'm having to do it, and I've got quite a lot of books to go back through and make those improvements too. Oh, the other thing, I've just thought of this, it's not on my list. I have a list in front of me of the things that I want to talk about. The other thing that I've also recently realised is to not ignore hardback. Now, obviously hardback wasn't there when I very first started. It's a relatively newish thing in KDP world, but I converted my best-selling notebook into a hardback and have already had a sale from it. So that's something that I wish I had done a lot sooner, as soon as hardback came out. I don't know why I didn't just convert my notebooks into hardback, but I just kept putting it off. And now what I'm doing is, every time I upload a book that is suitable for hardback, is I'm kind of doing it there and then, so that all the new notebooks, all the new planners and things that are the right size to go into hardback, it happens at the time. The next thing that I'm going to say is something that I haven't perhaps fully explored properly yet, but I have recently set up a Pinterest account to market the books that I'm creating. And I really wish I'd done it earlier, because I've had some books that have made some sales, and who knows how much promoting them on Pinterest or even on Instagram or wherever would have made to the sales of those books. It's something that I'm only just getting round to, and it took me about 5 minutes to set up, and I wish I'd thought to do that sooner as well and get that established at the beginning, so that, a bit like with the hardbacks, every time I upload a book I can create a pin, and then I can pin it on the Pinterest account and kind of do everything for that book as soon as it goes on. Now this one is, I think, probably one of the most important ones. I probably should have put this at the beginning actually. I think this is up there with the copyright and the trademark stuff. Read the KDP website. Even if you don't read it all in one go, read sections of it, pick a section and read about something. And don't just take what people are saying on YouTube as correct, because it might not be. They might be a beginner or semi-beginner, whatever you would call someone like me. I certainly don't know everything about KDP. I'm not hugely successful at KDP at the moment, but I just about know my way around it. Always double check the things that I say about KDP. Don't take them as correct until you've gone on the KDP website or you've spoken to someone on the help desk at Amazon and double checked something for yourselves. And then I think the final point that I would make is just always remember that there are no guarantees with KDP. Just because you've uploaded 100 notebooks, it doesn't mean that you either deserve sales or should expect sales or are guaranteed sales. It just doesn't work like that. You have got to figure things out and practice and learn and apply what you've learned. But honestly, when you do and you start getting those sales, even if they aren't that many, it's amazing. It's so good. So I hope you've enjoyed my little list of things that I wish I knew or wish I'd realised or wish I'd done differently. If you've experienced anything similar or thought anything similar about KDP yourself, make sure you drop me a comment in the box below. And if you're interested in building different streams of income, then make sure you subscribe to my channel, because there will be videos about all sorts of different online income topics over the coming months. So thank you for hanging out with me today, and I will see you again soon.